Declaration of a quorum, 7 members present. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for attending. Brings us to item C1, hearing of citizens. Public comment, nothing today. Brings us to item D1, receive a report from the demographer related to student enrollment and protected enrollment growth. Ms. Draws.
Thank you. You want to turn your lights off over there?
Don't worry, the lights are on.
Thank you. So annually, a part of our FC local policy says that you will get a report, an update from our demographer in the fall. That's November or December. And then we'll follow up later in the regular meeting with some additional information, observations, and recommendations. So we've been meeting with the demographers Zonda Demographics, or Zonda Education for the last several months, kind of going over our data. So we have Hudson Huff here tonight from Zonda Demographics to go over their report with you and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. And always enjoy the festive. I'm always used to a little bit of. I'm used to crazy socks. I'm not used to the jacket. So this is new. So this is great. Kind of jumping in, I'll take you through kind of what we're seeing, and I'll dive kind of into the big picture of things related to annual enrollment. So kind of diving into the numbers that we've seen. This is our annual enrollment change chart that we look at. A couple of things that I'll point out. One is just referencing that what we do related to that chart above that references kind of that in the yellow highlighted numbers are our highest grade groups that we have, followed by the green that are the second highest grade groups. And so we always track that to be able to identify potentially kind of our higher numbers, potentially enrollment bubbles that'll be coming through, so that we can kind of track whenever we're doing the analysis year over year what that potentially could be. Now, the other thing that we would show is that we did have a decline this fall compared to last fall. So that is really a first for the district. We've had a few times where we've had negative increase, but we've had pandemic year, and then we've had charters that have had that. But this is our first year that we've had that kind of a loss. That is a different number than what we had anticipated. So we had a higher projection based off of our trend and what we had anticipated based off of the last several years. So we are seeing a gap, and we'll try to highlight some of the details on potentially what caused that as a part of the overall report as we go through it. But I wanted to highlight that early on in this process. And then you can see kind of that cohort change that's referenced for each one of those grade groups. So as always, that above 1 references a strong number, and then anything below that shows a year-over-year enrollment loss in that grade over grade. So one of the things I would highlight is we still showed a fairly strong cohort increase at the kindergarten number. We're not seeing that in other districts right now. We're seeing our kindergarten numbers drop in some of those grade groups, and so that is a positive to take away from the enrollment picture for this year. Now, overall, we'll just talk in general about kind of what's going on with the economics through the state and also locally. So we're seeing overall a continued unemployment rate that's extremely low. But we are seeing a slight uptick. So if you look year over year, there has been a slight increase. If in the 2021-22 year, there was quite a bit of discussion about housing, about job growth and job creation. And so that has continued. We continue to see strong job growth and creation, but we've also had extremely strong population increases. And so what we're seeing is a larger number of population increase in comparison to our job growth numbers, which is creating a little bit of that gap. And potentially a little bit of an indicator of some challenges that may be lying ahead for us. Overall, we do see locally a couple of specific developments that are taking place that are related to companies and job growth. So a strategic armory corps that is breaking ground on business moving into the area that would be, as of about 2024, that would be bringing in an additional 70 full-time jobs. And then Century Square off of University, that's building a retail building and bringing commercial, bringing in Sephora, Coco Shrimp, Chop Shop, and Wells Fargo, some additional jobs in retail into the area. So overall, we'll talk about kind of just overall sales and what's happening with housing. So we are down related to overall home sales year over year. We had a stronger year in that January through September of 22. You can see our numbers are down a little over 500, approximately about 500 from the previous year. Our average price has gone up, and we'll detail that in a little bit more detail in one of the future slides. You'll also see that there's been an increase in the overall number of listings that are in the district. And then similar to what you're seeing related to the interest rates and the hikes that have taken place, that's also slowing things down related to they're still continuing to build a lot of homes, but there is a greater amount of inventory in the area related to that. So this is a little different chart than what you would have seen over the last several years. So what we've changed is the way this looks is it's actually by school year. So as opposed to it being a 2022, 2023 related to evaluating kind of the overall number of sales that are taking place in a school year and how that potentially would be impacting the next year. And so even though the 23-24 year is 308, that's really only about 2.5 months worth of data. So that it's more of an indication of what you can see in that 2022-23 year is less than what you had in the 21-22 school year as well as the 2021 year. So right now, based off of trend, we would anticipate that we would be in the ballpark of about 1,200 home sales if we continue at the pace that it currently is in that first quarter, which is about half of where we were back in the a little less than half of where we were in the 2021 year and 21-22 year. Overall, when you look at the actual home prices, both of those continue to be up in most areas, but we are seeing a leveling off and a little bit of a softening in the market from where it was in 2022 to what we're seeing in year to date in 2023 for new. So it has leveled a little bit, but when you take in the big picture of things, that has actually gone up a total of about 61%. For an overall increase of about 143,000 over that 10-year period of time. And then you're looking at a little smaller amount, about a 46% increase over that same 10-year period of time when you're talking about existing homes. So about $108,000 increase in comparison. Just touch on the multifamily picture overall related to multifamily. We do see that we have had an additional 562 units that have been added from the previous year. And so with that, additional supply has dropped the occupancy rate just slightly from where it was at 94% down to probably 91, 92%. So kind of getting into the big picture of things related to overall developments. So we have about 860 lots that are currently within the district that are available to be built on right now, that within about 24 active subdivisions. And then we know that out over the next several years, you could have as many as 3,300 planned future lots that are within the district currently right now. And then within those subdivisions, there are about 330 lots that are currently where there's dirt work taking place, utility work, roads that are going in to create some additional lot supply within the district. Those are highlighted in the map for those subdivisions that have the red line around the subdivisions. So looking at the multifamily picture, we've got a little over 1,100 homes that are currently, or units that are just about being completed as we speak. About 993 future multifamily units to be planned out. and then 994 of those units are actually housing for student housing. So when you look specifically, one of the larger ones is within the Pebble Creek attendance zone. This is Southern Point. Again, a total of almost 2,000 lots within the overall development. Has about 1,436 futures as a part of that overall development. They have 57 homes that are currently under construction right now. They do have groundwork underway on 67 lots, as well as another section that has 97 lots. So they are delivering probably another 150 to 200 in the next several quarters. And so when you take into consideration that they've got about 366 homes within that, we have a current yield right now of 0.481 as far as the number of students that are coming out of that new development. This is Pebble Creek, so 1,800 lots in total. They've got it's fairly established, been not quite built out yet. About 1,426 occupied homes within that development. Of that, there's about 0.39, 0.4 students that are in that yield total out of that development. Again, 9 homes that have been permitted in the last 12 months. So it's a slow developing. So they're not building quite a few homes a year in that specific development. Greens Prairie Reserve has 906 total lots, 720 futures that are there, and again, 22 homes that are currently under construction. They've got, when you take into consideration that 105 homes that are occupied, we've got a yield of about 0.5 students that are in that area, and the price points for this is about $350,000 plus. Is kind of the starting place for that, and they're anticipating building about 40 to 60 homes.
Can you, just for people watching, define the term student yield?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. So if we were to say for 100 homes, if we reference 0.5, 100 homes anticipate about 50 students that would be coming out of that, or 10 homes, 5 students. Thank you I apologize for not catching that earlier. Brewster Point community that is in Spring Creek attendance zone. It's got 290 total lots. Again, about 90 future lots that are in that area. Again, referencing that 108 homes, that 0.667 student yield in that district. Anticipating at that price point of about $250,000 that they're projecting out that they would be building about 50 homes per year. And then we've got Welborn Estates, Welborn Settlement, that is a fairly new development. It just has 1 home currently under construction right now, just getting started right now, and they do anticipate first residents most likely in that early 2024-25 timeframe. So it's a ways out. And then we've got Mission Ranch that is in River Bend, and this has about 538 total lots within it. When you take into consideration, it has about 217 homes that are already occupied within the overall development. Again, that 0.6 yield price point for those homes are a little over $350,000. And again, they've permitted about 54 new homes in the last 12 months. So they're referencing a build out of about 50 to 70 homes a year. Also has a Midtown Reserve that has 724 total lots. This is in that Southwood Valley attendance area. 307 occupied homes there. A very small yield of right now currently about 0.235 in that specific zone. Has approximately a little over 100 new lots that are going to be delivered in this next year with some of the phases that are taking place currently right now. And they have been building quite a few homes in that development. about 94 homes have been built in the last 12 months. Price points, again, are around 220,000. So we would anticipate with that price point that would be a little higher yield in that area. Could see some future growth in that area. So one of the things that we do point out, so that's related to the development picture. We do dive back into kind of the overall enrollment numbers that we have. And so what we do is, this is a newcomer leaver chart that we track. It doesn't account for, it takes into account student information that is within your first grade through 11th grade. So it takes out your kindergarten numbers and it takes out your 12th graders, because we anticipate they're coming in and they're leaving. So this is based off of those numbers. And so you can see that in that 23-24 year that we did have 170 more leavers than we had newcomers that came in this current year. Again, you can see a couple of years back in that pandemic year of 2021, the drop that took place initially, as well as the 2018-19, I believe, was when we had a charter opening in the district. So these are a couple of points where we've had that enrollment loss. Yes.
So you keep saying charters, but it shows their enrollments are going down. Our local charters, their enrollments going down. Noticing the kind of the 21-22, that upsurge plus 22, and then us coming down this year. Do we see that tacking with the return to work trends? Could I infer that people were moving here when they remote worked and they're having to go back to?
There are patterns like that, and that definitely could be part of the equation in what we're seeing happening.
So I will say the reference to charters is really more specific to 18-19, because that's when the charter opened. We might could look at it that way. So that's the 18-19, that year it opened. There was always a transfer of students out that year.
So we also look at, when we're evaluating what's happening with kindergarten in the earlier grades, we'll evaluate birth rates. And so across the state, there has been a discussion and news that are out there referencing overall birth rates going down. You can see actually within the district that the birth rates have been relatively strong, so there hasn't been a significant drop. And so what we do whenever we're projecting out kindergarten numbers is we reference that ratio of births to kindergarten numbers to give us kind of an idea of a trend and what that ratio potentially has been and what we would anticipate it would continue to be moving forward. So this just identifies and kind of explains kind of what that process looks like.
Can I just, I have a question on that, on the previous.
Yes.
So it's actually births that you're tracking here, not really a rate, right? So I'm just kind of thinking, if as our population's grown, so this would show, but if this is flat, then that would show that the rate is actually decreasing. Am I thinking of that right?
If we did have those, yes. If we started to have more births and less kindergarten students, and that would potentially create that rate drop. Yes.
Sorry, and I wasn't thinking of our kindergarten population. I'm thinking of like College Station population, right? And that if our number of births are staying the same while our population has gone up, it's showing to me that less people are having kids. Is that
yes? And that speaks to more of the overall state conversation about population versus the overall birth rate. Yes. And we have seen that drop now. We did see an increase from 21-22. So the birth rates have started to level off and increase. Part of that ties into our overall population increase is also factored into that as well. But we are seeing a little bit of an increase from where we saw from, I think it was 2007 to 2019 was a year-over-year drop in those rates.
I always forget if it's infer or imply, so I'll defer to the English teachers. But could we conclude then that our population in College Station says it's growing, but our birth rate is the same, that means we have an older population moving into town, not a birthing population moving into town.
That's a very good way of interpreting that. Yes.
So people are still moving here, but they're not, right?
So overall, when you take those things into consideration, we are in pivoting to a little bit more of a conservative view when we start to take into consideration where we're at with mortgage rates and the impact that that's had related to affordability, related to price points for homes. And so you can see that we have been at that pace of anywhere from 2 and 2.5%. But we do think that over the next year to 2 years could potentially start to dial back the overall numbers based off of what our current home sales are, and there could be a slowing of those overall sales, and they may still deliver the lots and have those readily available, but the pace of home sales and closings we anticipate is going to slow, and so that potentially will impact that, as well as knowing the higher price points are challenging some of those younger families with affordability, and so that's also slowing that number and dropping that yield and some of these numbers down as well. Ultimately, still anticipating growth, and you'll see that there is a little bit of a drop there related to the number whenever you get to the 26-27 timeframe, and again, that's just referencing some of those larger grades coming through and those graduating out, and then that drops back out. But we would anticipate long term, we are going to see something happen related to the mortgage rate to start to drop. And from that standpoint, we still anticipate that the district would continue to grow. And we would anticipate at least an additional 1,000 to 1,200 additional students in this 10-year time frame.
So I'll just chime in, you guys. Interestingly, so I'm part of a committee with the city right now. It's affordable housing that I'm on. And we just met yesterday, and one of the things we talk about, we've been talking about, obviously, is affordable housing, right? And as of yesterday, there were only 5 homes on the MLS in College Station that was under $200,000. So, and the definition of affordability is, it should be 30% of your income or your monthly bring home, right? And so in order to afford a $200,000 house, you should be making around $68,000 a year. So, and these under $200,000 houses, they're like 1,100 square feet, 1,200 square feet. So,
One thing goes to the broader conversation where we're getting that compression. People are moving here,
right,
but by definition, people without children are not interest rate sensitive.
right,
And ostensibly, since COVID, you can see in the data they're moving, so they're cashing out equity in a larger market, moving here, driving up the demand and the price premium. So, up until COVID, the job growth and population growth in our community was directly tied to Baylor Scott and White, St. Joe's, and the A&M University, Texas A&M. So without the jobs, that pays $68,000.
right.
What a city can do about that, what a school district can do about it, but I think knowing this data, and that it is, the good news I see is it's manageable growth. And I think the positive compared to some parts of the state is it's positive growth. And I think, to your point, to articulate with the city, just like the city manager said when we met, the school district is a huge, compelling argument for people moving here, moving their headquarters here, that are going to pay those $68,000 and higher jobs. So.
Yeah. Just a little interesting tidbit, I thought.
So we take that information and then apply that to the individual campuses. And so we anticipate kind of where those enrollment increases are, and potentially will challenge capacities in the next several years. And so anticipate with what's taking place related to Pebble Creek and Southern Point being a big contributor to that, anticipating breaching that barrier of capacity at Pebble Creek in that 25-26 year, and would continue to grow beyond that out to that little over 1,000 student number by the time we get to that 33-34 years. So definitely some challenges related to that specific campus.
On that, can I also ask why the decline in Forest Ridge?
Forest Ridge, most likely that has to do with potentially a couple of grade levels, and that may be very well at those specific campuses having a low kindergarten, first grade class that's coming through, and so that that sometimes contributes to those campuses. If we've got a higher third or fourth grade over the next several years in smaller grade classes coming through, that's normally contributing to where those numbers are coming from and why we would show a decline in enrollment at those campuses.
If I remember, Pecan Trail was one of those overburdened schools. It's always been Pebble Creek, Forest Ridge, and then Pecan Trail. Didn't we do some policy about allowing people to change campuses? Is that what it accounted for it kind of deflating a bit?
We did, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the actual regular meeting about what we have done in those particular areas.
Good job.
I think we have to remember too that the new development that he's been talking about is, you know, where those are. I don't think any of them were zoned to Forest Ridge. If I remember right.
Right.
Yeah, so just to follow on that, I mean, obviously, oh, sorry. So, I mean, obviously, the new construction that you talked about is factored in here at the yields that you factor in. I mean, so really, I think to me, one of the big questions is the yield, and are you basing it on historic yield, or do you try to?
It does tie into historic yield. So we do anticipate, especially when you take into consideration existing populations and developments where you have rates being where they're at currently right now and the resale slowing down, anticipating that you'll have stable residency in those areas, and so there won't be quite the turnover that we may have had at those lower interest rates and those resales. So that also helps or contributes to some of those declining yields and some of those developments, just because those start to age out or mature.
And that makes sense. I was trying to figure out, you know, always looking back, why it's changed so much, right? To me, that's the biggest question. And going forward, how much do we trust this? But you're saying that to some degree it's going to be a little more stable in some of those existing communities.
We would anticipate that, yes.
Okay.
And then again, at the intermediate and middle school levels, continuing to be related to capacity at those campuses are in a good position with the anticipated enrollment at each of those campuses. And the only campus right now currently that does have some challenges related to capacity is what the district is well aware of, related to College Station High School. So,
But I imagine this doesn't take into account the bond.
No.
Okay, good. Okay.
and that's based off of existing capacity and the plans that were previously in place, and knowing that that's going to be accommodated with the work that's going to be coming. So again, we do see that there is economic and as pointed out, housing market growth that's still taking place and putting the district in a good position, so that there still should be continued positive trends related to overall enrollment. 1,200 homes sales, which is less than what we've had the last couple of years, and so anticipate that general number again, and that could increase beyond that, but that's based off of what our first quarter numbers showed. Still quite a few lots to be built on, as well as those 3,300 that we've talked about for future. And again, just pointing to the fact of some of the challenges that we've been dealing with are really tied to higher interest rates. Some of the challenges that we do also see do tie into choice. So we are seeing an increase related to homeschooling, and that's more of a straight state trend than I would say is a specific College Station trend. But those are factors that we anticipate are challenges and to overall enrollment. And I would say that again, could be around that 14,700 students by the time we get to that 28-29 year, which is a little bit more of a conservative view than what we've had in the past. And then ultimately, when we get to that 10-year time frame, potentially about 15,500 students total.
Just generally, when you talk with the city about their vocabulary when they're zoning stuff, it's a stretch of vocabulary to say multifamily when 87% of it is for students.
Oh, yeah, we talk about that. We talk about that a lot. And there was a slide in here that I think you said, when we talked about multifamily, you said that there's 94, what were those numbers, something 93?
Yeah, it was 900,
Right.
I think it was 945 units of those were specifically for student housing.
Right,
Yes.
right, 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 right. I think that's some terms that may be used. So I'm just gonna say to you guys, to the board, I love that we get this report every year. I do think that the board, there's another report that goes along with this, in the regular meeting. That's, part B, the district's portion of this. And I think there's some things that you guys are really going to need to look at and consider over the next, couple of years. What's going on with some of our campuses, and really think hard about what these numbers are doing to those campuses. So I just encourage you to pay attention, ask questions, and think through what that means, these numbers mean at those campuses, and be true to FC Local, please. The next version of this report.
I'll be the Debbie Downer and say, I don't really necessarily put much faith in them at all. Not because of y'all's, but just, I mean, does a new charter move in? Is there another pandemic? School vouchers, and school vouchers could go one of two ways. We could lose students, or we could gain a lot of students. So it's interesting, and I appreciate the methodology to it, but there's so many outside factors that it's tough to plan out more than a couple years when you look at these kind of things.
I'll give you that.
I'm just curious, how big of a Rangers fan are you? Because that watch is, it's noticeable.
Our household was a little loud a couple of months ago, so I'll just say that. So, yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I will say, I was having some of the same questions that you, Josh, that how much do we trust this? How much has it changed from, do we go back and have a margin of error on, from year to year? How close are we on this? And I mean, obviously, there's lots of unknowns that happen, but yeah, we got to use it to make some decisions. So it's really how much we can trust it to move forward. I think it's really key.
Anything else? Appreciate you bringing our report to us.
All right, thank you very much.
That will bring us to D2, consideration and discussion related to the 24-25 school calendar development process. Ms. Parkinson.
Good evening, Mr. Horak, Dr. Harkrider, members of the board. As you are aware, we are just a little bit more than halfway through our process for calendar development with our District Education Improvement Council. We actually started our conversations back in September and have gone through several cycles of sharing calendars, gathering input and feedback. And tonight I have two calendars to show you that we would like to put forward for the community to consider and give us feedback on via a formal survey. Through this process, I'd like to remind you that the DIC set the priorities that are listed here on the screen. Certainly, we want to maximize our learning time with our students. We want to make sure that we're considering both student and educator wellness. On the student side, that includes child care, food insecurity, those concerns. And then certainly we know that our staff need some breaks as well to make sure that they're taking good care of themselves and their families. We also prioritize educator development as a school district, and so we need to have time allocated for that. And then we received a lot of feedback from our committee about looking at the frequency, timing, and the length of breaks to make sure they are spread out throughout the school year. We also had some feedback at various points through this calendar development process regarding innovative calendar options, and so I wanted to make sure that I address that tonight. Since one of our priorities really is about making sure that our students are taken care of and that we're considerate of working families, and in considering all of the feedback we've received over the last several years in calendar development, we know that innovative calendars such as those with a 4-day school week are sometimes difficult for those working families. We're also very fortunate that our voters have supported the bond propositions set forward in 2021 and in 2023, which means that our summers will be full of construction projects for the foreseeable future. And we need to be able to maximize that time that we have available during the summer and have crafted our calendars around that, which limits how innovative or different our calendars that we put forward for consideration may be. Therefore, all the calendar options that we presented after eliminating the first of the 4 calendars that DSC considered have started with the students beginning on August 14th and ended now prior to Memorial Day to be able to maximize that time that we have in the summer. So both of the calendars that you have tonight, you'll notice underneath your agendas, I've given you copies of these if you would like to take a look at them. The cover page gives you a side-by-side chart comparing the 2 calendars, and then you have the printed versions of the calendars themselves. In each of these 2 calendars, we'll have 7 days of professional learning to launch the school year. Students will begin on August 14th. We will include the September 2nd Labor Day holiday and something that is a little bit different for us this year. Both calendars that are being put forward have October 14th as a holiday for both staff and students to ensure that staff also gets a break in October. Both of them include the first 2 days of Thanksgiving week as comp days for our staff, and the students have the full Thanksgiving week off as well. We also made sure that the first semester ended before winter break so that those finals could be completed at the end of that semester and not after the winter holidays. We have that early release day before the winter holiday, and then 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a couple of days. Not quite enough to say really 2.5 weeks for students, but a full 2 weeks of winter break on both calendars for our students. In the spring semester, teachers would come back on January 6th and students on the 7th in both calendars. We would have the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. We have spring break noted in March, but I just wanted to note once again that we do have our contacts with Texas A&M, so we'll make sure that our final calendar does align with their break that is not yet published. Then on April 18th, which is Good Friday, that would be a holiday for all of our staff and students. And April 21st, the Monday after Easter, would be a staff comp day and student holiday in both calendars. We would complete the school year, as I said, before Memorial Day with that early release, and graduation then would be on May 23rd as well. So how do these 2 calendars differ? Wait, one more moment of the same. Remember once again that one of our constraints is that we do need to make sure that we are reaching our 187 contract days for our educators, for our teachers. Both calendars do include 3 comp days, and both of them equate to about 5.5 days of instructional minutes, so that we have that buffer for inclement weather or any other unforeseen circumstances so that we can apply that time should we need to do so to make sure that we're not having to make up school days and those circumstances as well. Okay. Now the differences. Calendar A is our green calendar. The key difference here is in October, where we have one staff development and student holiday paired with that October 14th holiday for all staff and students. And then you'll notice in November, we come back and have another staff development day on November 1st, which helps us to break up the school year. And incidentally, that is the day after Halloween. And we did notice a slight decline in attendance this year on the day after Halloween. It is a Friday in next school year. We do end the first semester on December 20th in this calendar. February 17th is a holiday. And then once again, it does have those 3 staff development days interspersed throughout the school year. And I would like to remind you that we were able to count those 3 staff development days as part of our instructional minutes because of a waiver that we have approved last school year for TEA. And that's our last year that we have that approval to be able to apply those instructional minutes. And this calendar includes 173 instructional days for our students. Calendar B gives us a slightly longer break in October. We have back-to-back staff development days on October 10th and 11th, which are student holidays. We also then couple that with that holiday on October 14th. This calendar releases students and staff 1 day earlier for the winter break on December 19th. And this calendar, February 17th, is a staff development day rather than the holiday that we see in calendar A. And this calendar does have 4 staff development days that are able to be applied toward those instructional minutes via that waiver that we have. And we will serve our kids in 172 instructional days in calendar B. So those are the main differences between these 2 calendars. We are ready to post our survey very quickly, hopefully tomorrow, to get some feedback on these 2 options from our community. And so we'll leave that open the entire winter holiday through Friday, January 5th, which is the Friday of the first full week back after we return from our winter break. We'll have that feedback ready to disaggregate and discuss at the January 10th DIC meeting, which gets us ready just in time for that December board meeting on the following week to hopefully be able to bring forward for you all a calendar for consideration. Mr. Horak, last month you'd asked about surveys in the past, and so I pulled our information related to that. And last year we increased our total survey participation by over 1,000 participants total. We moved from 35 student participants to 696. And so I'm really excited to continue to post that information in Schoology and leverage the downtime during final exams this week to hopefully get some really good feedback from our students in addition to our community during that window of time. With that, I'm happy to entertain any questions or any discussion.
I mean, calendar B almost has a fall break in there with that five days for families.
It does. It
When
is
you
as
include the
close as
holiday-
we
I mean, the
could
weekend.
get to stay within our
Yeah.
parameters and be able to have a longer break for families for sure.
That said, one of the thing, I mean, obviously our other school district across town did have a fall break. Do we have any, I think there was some discussion on how that went in DIC and kind of the pros and cons of it. I mean, I don't know if you want to say what you've
Yes,
heard, you
yes,
probably know more
ma'am.
officially than me, probably.
Certainly, we did have some discussion around a longer fall break, and there are certainly pros and cons to that. The feedback from our community that I have heard goes back to making sure that we're serving our community and our working families well, and sometimes those extended breaks are really difficult on our families. And so between that and just the additional constraints that we have on when we need to begin and end the year, it becomes difficult for us to be able to frame out a longer fall break.
For the sake of the teachers, I know having the holiday the day after Halloween would be very well.
I hypothesize that will be well received, at least in the elementary teacher feedback. We do disaggregate it to that level, so we will see.
Well, I think the intermediate and middle school kids would like that too.
And I would just say, I think there are 2 good options out here, and one of the things that the committee looked at was, some consistency from year to year, right? This is not any radical changes or anything, and I think that is probably what our community would want. So there's just slight little differences, and always the problem is there's like more than one difference. So if you like this thing, you'll go with the calendar green, and if you like this other thing. So it'll be interesting to see the input from the community, so it's great.
Anything else? Be excited to see where we are in January.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Brings us to item D3, consideration and discussion regarding the Texas Association of School Boards Board Policy Update 122 and Policy CV Local. Ms. Draws and Ms. Hester.
Do you have your copy? Do you want? I have one. So good evening. This is one of our big, I didn't get the call about what I was supposed to wear tonight, so. And I'm really feeling left out, so.
Oh, we didn't call each other either.
It's
so
just what you normally wear.
happens.
It's looking good. Okay, well, we're just out of a legislative session, so this is always our biggest board policy update. So there were actually 124 updates, but only 12 of them are local, which are the only ones you get to vote on. So where we have 112 legal policy changes that are pretty significant, tonight you're only learning about the local ones, which there are 12 of them. I gave you a handout with the list of them, the little explanatory notes that gives you a brief overview, and then I attached behind that you'll see the comparison, what it looked like before and what it looked like with the change. One of the most significant ones, my personal favorite one, is that we're DC local, is we can now hire, we have such an issue with hiring bus drivers across the state, so now they're gonna allow nepotism in the hiring of bus drivers, so I thought that was just an interesting one. One of the ones that's most important for you all, because you have to vote on it and have a recommendation pretty soon, is DP local, which is the employment of the employ chaplains or accept chaplains as volunteers in the school district, and we have to make a decision about that. The board has to make a decision no later than 6 months after September 1st, 2023. So we're gonna have to do that in our next meeting here. And then just moving through those, there's a couple of ones about special programs, compensatory education. EHBC is another one, particularly about changes in how we're going to do accelerated instruction and parent request on that and repeating grades, that kind of thing. So it's those are all pretty clearly explanatory. Another new one is compulsory attendance, that currently and forever, we've had the opportunity for juniors and seniors in high school to take 2 college days each semester. Well, now they're going to get an opportunity to take 2 career and technology days to go visit someone where they want to look at a job and spend some days looking at that. So beginning their junior and senior year, they get to take 2 days each. So I think that's pretty exciting for our students. We also have FFB local is student welfare crisis intervention, where we're required to have an opportunity, a clear policy to report different behaviors that students are concerned about. Fortunately, we've been having our P3 app at the secondary level and then another app at the elementary levels that we do that already. So that's something we already do. So we're in compliance on that already. But those are the most critical ones, but look through that and then look at the comparison changes. So any questions?
Do any of these dictated policies drastically change our standard operating procedures? Or what we already,
The legal ones?
right?
Not drastically. I mean, some of them we already knew and
Right.
are in place, but they're just not a big drastic thing.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate is the foresight of whoever's
Yeah.
doing the policy
Yeah.
is anticipating things so that when it does
Yeah.
come down the road, it's not a shock. And I think a lot of stuff, there's a lot of foresight just on providing for student services. We don't need the commissioner to tell us what we're already doing to take care of our kids.
Right.
Was it 2 additional days? I don't know, it's not a big deal, but, I mean, I guess it is, but on the compulsory attendance, is it 2 additional days? So 4 now, 2 CTE, 2 college?
That's my understanding.
I mean,
Yep. That's a lot,
yeah, no, it's fine.
but we're looking at
just-
our juniors and seniors about where they want to go in life,
Right.
so that's good.
I think the intent maybe was to try to make sure some kids that wanted to go the CTE route could take those days, maybe even if they weren't going to go to a 4-year school.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
They technically, yeah, could have the option to do potentially 4.
Okay.
It also gives an opportunity to get in the right courses, particularly if you're doing it your junior, senior year. Your junior year, you can still change a little bit of your 4-year plan, so.
For CV local, I guess, yeah, Ms. Draw's question.
Yeah.
Was there a
So-
compelling event that
No, so we just wanted to take this opportunity to bring forth CV Local in addition to Policy Update 122. So CV Local is a construction policy, and it requires you as a Board of Trustees to approve the procurement method for any construction projects that exceed $50,000. And you can imagine it doesn't take a whole lot to get above 50,000. So a construction project is, of course, a new building or a new structure, but it also includes any alteration to a current structure. So this is something we kind of tried with the 2021 bond, whereby we took the procurement method to the Board of Trustees and you approved that at the decision of the superintendent that it would be competitive sealed proposal or job order contracting. The superintendent could make that decision of what's in the best interest of the district. But if it was going to fray from that, we felt like there was a better method that has to come to you. And of course we did with the CTE Center. So it really makes the construction process much streamlined. Because when you're talking about a smaller project, Mr. Hall and his staff are probably kind of already talking and getting some ideas. And more than likely, anything of probably 500,000 or less, or even closer to $1 million, is going to be that job order contracting or competitive sealed proposal. So we'd like to propose or for you to consider doing that same thing across all construction projects, allowing us to proceed with one of those two methods, and of course bring you another recommendation if we think that is the best value for the district. It does not change anything if the contract is over 50,000. We still will be bringing that to the Board of Trustees to review how we came about that price, what those comparisons were, and for your overall approval. So just something we would like for you to consider that I think would make some things move much faster and a little smoother.
Is there some magic reason with the 50,000? Is that?
That's legal policy.
Okay.
On the $50,000 rule, on anything 50,000 or more, actually, if it hits the 50. And it is that a new building or structure or an altercation or addition to a current structure.
Can I just follow up on that? I mean, so we have to approve projects at 50,000. Is that the same? It has to be the same cutoff for the meth or the
For this particular item, this policy, if it changes, says that we can determine if it's going to be job order contracting or competitive sealed proposal. If it's one of those two, we would not be bringing approval or request the procurement method, but we would be bringing the overall contract to you to approve the award of that to a subcontractor. Okay. And if we decide competitive, that maybe CMAR, competitive construction manager at risk, that's another common one for the district. If that is considered a best value for the district, we would have to come back to you and ask for approval for that.
Basically, it's just going to help us with timelines.
Mm-hmm.
That if something's going and John and his team's ready to go and we know we're going to do job order contract, we can get roll, he can get paperwork. Instead of having waiting, let's say we just finished a meeting until the next meeting to get that approval, we could potentially hit the next meeting with the numbers, or a special meeting and have the numbers. It just saves time.
So we can't advertise for quotes
Right.
until you've done that procurement method. So we can't put it out on the streets timing wise until you've approved that procurement method. And this kind of cuts that out if we're going to use either of those two. It's worked. I think it's worked very well for the 2021 bond program. You just approved it for that program only, but this would expand it. Okay.
Anything else?
When are we expected to vote on these?
January.
Thank you. Not in an hour and a half.
No. January, we'll bring it back. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank
Thank
y'all
you.
for the update. That'll bring us to item E, adjourn